From destroying an ex-world champion like Charles Martin, to knowing that he's one of the best fighters in the world, here's why Jared Anderson is a rising star in boxing. He couldn't have handled the fight against Martin any better. Anderson showed that he's one of the best in the business, thanks to his amazing performance against Martin in recent times. Up until that fight, he'd managed to knock every single one of his opponents out. So, this one was a first, since the fight ended up having to be decided by decision. Still, there was a moment during the fight when Anderson managed to knock Martin down to the canvas. It was also pretty early on during the bout and happened during the third round of the fight. Even though this wasn't a KO win for him, it was a great opportunity for the rising star to learn. He understood that sometimes you just need to be a little more patient. You can't just rush things and expect them to go your way. There was also a moment during the fight where Martin managed to phase Jared with a straight left and followed it up with a pretty accurate punch combination. This was probably the only moment in the fight where Martin looked like he was in control. Apart from those few seconds of domination, Chris was trying to defend himself from Anderson's onslaught for most of the fight. This performance puts the youngster at 15 wins with 0 losses and is probably the reason why he thinks he'll be an icon in the sport. Normally, when someone says they want to be a legend in combat sports, it's pretty hard to take them seriously. Jared, on the other hand, seems to be a different story entirely. So far, he's put together a pretty nice resume, and it doesn't look like he can be stopped anytime soon. He mentioned how facing off against Tyson Fury is also something he has planned. He's signed to the same promotion as Fury and has trained with him in the past. Even so, Anderson said that at the end of the day, it's all about the business. And since Fury was probably going to be his biggest payday, there wasn't a chance in hell he'd stop himself from stepping into the ring with him. There hasn't been a heavyweight championship bout this year, and most of the heavyweight greats like Fury and Usyk are all missing from the action. Jared pointed out that it was because people no longer fought because they wanted to be the best. Instead, things took a dark turn and fighters didn't care about much except when it came to money. So wherever there was a large paycheck involved, you could bet your ass all of these champs would be there in a second. Apart from all this, Jared has been focusing on improving the more mental aspects of his career. I mean, the man sat down with boxing legend Roy Jones Jr. You can't say that Anderson isn't committed. I mean, the man is downright starving to learn as much as he can about the sport, in hopes of becoming a legend in the sport. He even sat down with Roy Jones Jr. and tried to get his take on what he thought was the best way to deal with all of this. He talked about how he was very happy about getting to spend 2 days with the legend, though it felt more like an interview. Still, it was an opportunity to learn, and he made sure to get the max amount of benefit he could from it. He said that it was important for him to sit down with the legend, because if there was anyone who could give him advice on how to navigate through this part of his career, it was Jones Jr. He also talked about how he always tried his best to deliver a great show to his fans. Apart from Martin, none of his opponents were able to get past 6 rounds with him. Being crazy like that has its perks. I mean, at the end of the day, it's all about being able to attract and grow your fan base. So if you're a fighter who keeps on knocking fighters out, well, there's just no reason not to show us just how technical he can be. With all these techniques stored in his head, a pretty daunting question comes up. Just how good is Jared? It's clear that this dude is an exceptional talent. The man clearly knows his way around a ring, and it's hard to catch him lacking during a fight. I mean, just ask 14 of his last 15 opponents how they felt during their scrap with him. It makes you wonder how good he really is, and whether he's ready to face off against the big dogs of boxing. He's got a few techniques under his belt which helps him keep his opponents in check. One of his favorite things to do is to play with the jab. He likes to lead with his jab and find holes in his opponent's defense. And just when they think the jab is their biggest problem, he'll go ahead and start clobbering them with body hooks and uppercuts. Since he's a heavyweight, those punches hurt a lot more than any punches you or I could throw. He's also very slippery for someone of his size. He's got such good footwork that his promoter Bob Arum compared him to Muhammad Ali. You know you've got to be on another level if you're getting compared to the GOAT. He manages to glide around his opponents and they're powerless when trying to hit him. It's pretty crazy to watch him dismantle his opponents like they're amateurs. then knock them out on the first chance he gets. The craziest part about this dude is that he doesn't even care that much about his career. Jared was recently asked about where he saw himself in a few years, and surprisingly enough, he went ahead and said that he hopes to have faded away by the age of 26. Now I know how that sounds. Most people would call him crazy since this is like the perfect time in his career to make something of himself, especially the part where he wants to go on to be considered an icon. He went on to talk a bit more about the whole thing and said that the only reason he's been doing boxing professionally is because he's stuck with it. He's just done it for so long and with such intensity that he doesn't think he'll be as good at something else. I'm not gonna lie, that's a bit of a depressing outlook on life, but hey, if Anderson thinks it's good enough for him, who are we to judge? There are a couple of reasons why he's not too happy about boxing for longer than 3 to 4 years. He said that he doesn't like being noticed and hates the idea of becoming a celebrity. It's understandable since not everyone's cut out for fame. He just wants to get as rich as possible, then drop off the face of the earth. That way, when people look back at his career, he'll be a myth. Someone who came up out of nowhere, beat the shit out of everybody, then disappeared as quickly. He doesn't have a shortage of confidence either, since he's already begun calling himself one of the best fighters in the world. A lot of people have been wondering when this dude is going to start fighting some of the biggest names in boxing, and whether he'll become one of the best in the world anytime soon. Well, his current ranking is number 9 overall, so he's already a part of the list of the top 10 heavyweight fighters in the world. He's clearly got some insane self-confidence, seeing how he's always ready to fight. It's actually pretty refreshing to see someone like him be all humble. A lot of fighters like to milk all the glory they earn, but the big baby seems to want none of that. He mentioned his plans to face the fighters who offered the biggest paychecks, which meant that he was ready to face off against the likes of Alexander Usyk, Tyson Fury, Anthony Johnson, and so on. I'm not gonna lie, I'm pretty excited to see what he can do when he gets into the ring with those beasts. He also said that he's in the game to sell fights, but doesn't believe in dancing around with his opponents for 10 rounds straight and boring the crowd to death. He'd rather bulldoze through his opponents by putting them under pressure and making sure they slip up. For someone who's only been a pro for less than 3 years, he's pretty technically gifted and knows all the secret tricks to breaking down his opponents. It really won't be long before he's setting records, winning championships, and making a boatload of money. The only thing that's left to do is to wait and see what he can accomplish in the next few years. From knowing that he's one of the best fighters in the world to destroying an ex-world champion like Charles Martin, that was why Jared Anderson is a rising star in boxing.